Hello, everybody. Welcome to another sprint demo from the Evernym team that contributes to Sovereign and Indy. Excited to share the work we've gotten done in the last couple of weeks and have the team prepared to share a couple of things. This sprint, we're going to focus on Indy Node and want to share we're in the middle of a large release and ready to get that shared. So, quick review about what we took care of on the SDK side. We spent that team's. Most of our team's working on Indy Node at the moment. So on the SDK, we've been making slower progress, but we have focused really on conversations with the open source community, with the contributors to the SDK on the credential exchange HIPE, and especially adding the payment decorator to that HIPE. That's made good progress. You can see more information about that in the HIPE repo in GitHub and follow along. We appreciate any comments people want to add to that. We also recognize the next big feature needed for the sovereign network is the transaction author agreement. That's a way for stewards to, by asking everybody who writes to this public ledger to agree to acknowledge that it's a public ledger, they can't remove stuff, they're not going to have personal data on it. It gives the stewards who are hosting that ledger some protection against the consequences of people causing problems. So we need to get that done, and a lot of the sovereign stewards are asking for that protection. And so we did a design for that. That design you can see in the document. It's also Indy 1942 goes into it in some detail. We'll talk about that more when we talk about the next sprints. And we did a little bit of some bug fixes and cleanup on auth rules. On the token side, our work on the sovereign token, the SDK, we worked with the Sovereign Foundation to complete a CI/CD pipeline for libsoft token on Windows. And so we tested the last sprint, got the builds working manually, and now they're automated builds. So each future release, that'll work on Windows just fine. And then we have some work in progress on getting the libsoft token to use the new auth rules and the new approach to fees. And we've been improving integration testing there as well. So that's the update on how the Indy SDK team, the Evernym Indy SDK team has been working. The Indy Node team has made a lot of progress as well. We have making sure I'm looking at the right sprint. We're almost done with the release of plugins that supports the new logic for auth rules, and it doesn't have complete support for that. We're going to finish that up in the next release, but it's basically functional. And then on the last sprint on Indy Node, we completed some fixes to the way view changes work, some additional fixes there, some more work on multi-signature stuff, and some bug fixes. And that puts us finally able to release Indy Node 1.7. It's got the first new feature release since last June, I think was when we did 1.6. And that includes the auto ledger, and it includes the auth rules map and the new multi-signature capability. It'll be really valuable. And that's what we're going to spend most of the day talking about. So that's the update on what we've done. We'll come back to Jira near the end when we talk about what we're going to do next. So with that, Andrew's going to show us some more examples about how to use the auth rules. I recommend that if you're watching this video on YouTube, you check out the last 3 sprint demos where we've gone through this. We've been working on this for quite a while, and that'll help you understand the design and the specific interactions, and that'll give you context for what Andrew's going to show us now. So recommend you do that. You can find our YouTube videos at the Evernym channel on YouTube in the Hyperledger playlist. So you can check the last 3 sprints. I'll have auth rules related stuff, at least the last 3. So with that, I'll let you share your screen, Andrew.
Yeah, hello all. Let me share my screen. Okay, first of all, I will run all the tests because it can take a lot of time. Yeah. During the sprint, I was working on test covering for auth rule. First of all, I want to tell some words about about auth rule conception. Regarding this, we have two main docs into Indy Node repo. It's auth rules Indy and request Indy. Auth rules Indy, it's about it's a list of all our auth rules, and requests MD, it's more technical information about how to change default behavior. Well, now we have a lot of auth rules for all kind of action. For example, yeah, okay. What is auth rule? Auth rule, it's need to make a relationship between actions, and it's about what we can do, and between persons, it's about who can do this action. For example, for also we have two main types of auth rules. It's add and edit. For example, if we want to add some trustee, now only one trustee can do this. Yeah, but if we want to edit trustee role, for example, we want to move trustee to steward, we also need one trustee. All of this table describe all of possible action which implemented into source code for now. And what if we want to change default behavior? For now, we can send auth rule transaction. Auth rule transaction can change only a constraint part of auth rule. We have two main parts. It's action ID, this string, and constraint part. Constraint part describe who can do this. For example, if we want to change a service field into not transaction from validator to empty list, it's analog of demoting node. Only one steward or one trustee can do this action. We can change this behavior. Action string, it's constantly string. We cannot change it by sending auth rule transaction. We can change only constraint part. Action ID part can change only into source code. Also, okay. As I said before, during the spring, I was working on test covering. For now, I completed test covering for adding NIM and editing existing NIM. All of these tests consist of some singular behavior. For example, for edit NIM, we have the same. We have the next steps. Firstly we change default auth rule. Then we check that default way is not working. Then we check that new auth rule working, and then we return to default value. And then we back to default auth rule, and then at the end we check that default behavior is working now. And I think that's all from my side. All the tests passed.
Now that's the. Can you show the path that file again? Because that's a pretty good set of examples for how auth rules work.
What kind of example do you mean?
Those unit tests. I just wanted to confirm the path of that again, so I can review it.
Well, I can show.
So I mean the path where the file lives. Where does edit roles.py live?
Well, it's tests. What?
Yes, sorry. It's Indy Node /test/auth rules /auth framework. Okay, yeah, I was trying to find it in your PyCharm. It's really small on my screen. So yes, that works. So if people want to know more about how to set auth rules, that's a good example to see how that's done in the code. So thank you. That was really useful. Thanks for sharing that. Next demo is Andrey K. Was going to take us through the release process. He's done a number of improvements to the way we do releases. Again, this is one we've discussed in the last, well, we didn't do it last time, but the one before, I think we talked about the release in a bit more detail. So this is a good opportunity. So you might want to review that previous one before, if you're watching the video. So Andrey K., why don't you take us through how the release process works now?
Hello. So I'm going to tell about release process that is currently happening for the version 1.7.0. So at the beginning, let's talk about how.
Andrey, I think the your Zoom participants list is blocking the screen.
Sorry.
There it goes. Thanks.
Sorry. Yes. So as it was before, we have some drawbacks in our release process and our versioning logic. So we have very non-sameware like. So we called it sameware like, but it was actually not a sameware versioning scheme. We have just 2 digits in our version that were presented in source code, and we have 3 digits in our artifacts, Debian packages and PyP packages. So it means that it was hard to. So the third number in packages was added by Jenkins server, so it was hard to predict actual release version that is coming, because release process also includes some such bad thing that we merge changes to stable branch before QA performs acceptance of the release candidate. So if QA denied new release, we had to create new release candidate and again merge it to stable and tag it, changing the final release version. So for now, the release process a bit different. We have all 3 digits in our source code. For example, for plenum, it would be a JSON file placed here in plenum version JSON. It has 3 digits for release part, so it's main part, and some additional parts for pre-release version. So if you go to PyP, you can see that we have 2 stable releases now, and a set of pre-releases. So in terms of PIPE versioning, it's dev releases. So for now, we satisfy PEP 440 standard. We use pre parts in release version. It can be dev prefix, it can be RC as well. So, but for now we don't publish RC candidates to PIPE. So if you go to our Debian package repository, you can see that from some point we started to so you can see our repository for the dev packages. From some point, we started to publish packages with dev prefixes as well, but you can see that we use tilde instead of dot that we use for PIPE, because Debian policy use some different rules for naming of the artifacts. So we try to satisfy that as well to keep right version precedence. So stable version should win dev and RC releases. So let's go to our plenum again. So some words about a branch that we use. So for now we have master branch for dev. So you can see that it use dev prefixes inside. Version JSON. If you check stable, you can see that there is no such prefixes for in pre-release parts, and so pre-release parts are empty. For RC candidate, there would be a RC prefix. For now we have master table, and also we have release and hotfix branches to keep release candidates and hotfix release candidates. And I want to say about currently happening release process, because we encountered a set of issues, and we had to use new release workflow, new possibilities of release workflow to keep the same final release version, but changing our release candidate in the same time. So at the beginning, we created a release for Indy Plenum. It was release 170, and for now, Plenum accepted without any QA activity. So QA acceptance present only for Node. Indy Node. So we check that CI is passed for Plenum, and we merge to the stable. Then we prepared first release candidate for Indy Node. Sorry, not one. Yes, you can see that currently it's still not merged yet. PR to stable branch. We created RC1 candidate. And we encountered that it's we have some issues with Plenum as well, so we had to create new release for Plenum, and we use a hotfix workflow. We create new branch, named it as hotfix. And we finally merged it to stable, and we created new release candidate for Indy Node based on this bumped version of Indy Plenum. And after that, we encountered that Indy Node again has some issues that should be fixed. We created again third release candidate, and for now it is a active release candidate, and hopefully it will be accepted by our QA, and at the end of the process, our Jenkins pipeline will merge. Yes, after all approvals presented, our Jenkins pipeline will merge that PR test table. Actually, we do merge using fast forward strategy, so it would be the same hash for stable as you can see for release branch. So it means that for now we as of now we don't merge to new release to stable for Indy Node until QA accepts it. It means that it would be definitely the same version as we planned our sprint plans and so on. It would be 170, and if we encounter, if we faced with some issues with merged release, with happened release, we would create a hotfix branch for Indy Node and fix it in scope of current workflow. Yes. So I also want to mention that we have some doc regarding new release process. It is in Indy Node /doc/source code CI/CD markdown. At the end, you can see steps that our workflow uses. So I think it's all from my side. Thank you.
That's really great. That'll make it much easier to communicate about our releases. People are aware that the last release is 1.6.83 or 85. I don't even know, because it changes depending on how many turns we have doing QA. And so being able to say, yes, 1.7.0 is actually done is going to be really helpful. So thank you for doing that, Andrey. And last demo, Sergey is going to take us through some more catch-up improvements. Andrey K, I think you need to stop sharing. Yeah, there you go.
Hi. Just a small check. How much time do I have to present?
5-ish minutes.
Okay, let's do it in 5-ish minutes. So I'd like to present our latest improvements on catch-up algorithm. It was done in scope of ticket Indy 2053. First of all, why this was necessary? Old logic doesn't take into account number of available transactions on different nodes, so it may happen that node that does catch-up can send some catch-up request to nodes that doesn't have enough transactions, and then it will need to wait until timeout, because when receiving such catch-up request, nodes just discard them, and it can be possible that this reasking can be done twice or more, although with lower probability. So all this leads to very slow catch-up in some cases. And taking into account that currently catch-up is a part of view change process, this can also lead to additional instabilities of a view change. So that's why we decided that this is quite a serious issue that better be tackled as soon as possible. Now as how we fixed it. Now nodes take into account information about number of available transactions on different nodes, and this information actually already available on catching up node, and this node then sends catch up requests only to those nodes that have corresponding transactions. Let's see some diagrams. First of all, how it looked before. For example, if we have a pool with 4 nodes, and one of nodes is catching up, it has just 10 transactions, and it asks for 11 to 16. And other nodes, some have all transactions, and some nodes doesn't have all transactions. It may just happen so that Gamma will discard catch-up request for 15 and 16 transaction, and lagging node will wait until timeout before reasking. So after timeout, it already has 14 transactions, and then it reasks for next transactions from nodes that were responding. With the new algorithm, it will ask for transactions, taking into account how many transactions these nodes reported. So it will ask for 2 transactions from Gamma, but it will ask from Gamma only transactions that are below 13. And actually there could be even more complex case. For example, Gamma has only 1 more transaction, and still in this case a new algorithm will let Gamma participate, but it will ask for only transaction that it had, spreading the load to other nodes that have more transactions. This is actually well, the PR is currently merged. There are lots of tests written. Most interesting probably are one integration test that shows that even though that some nodes have less transactions than others, then catch-up completes without reasking, and it passes now. Well, it will pass in a couple of seconds, yes. And another test is that that might be interesting is that actual algorithm for selecting nodes and building catch-up requests is quite complex. It looks a bit scary probably, but I've covered this algorithm with a somewhat randomized test, which runs 2,000 times, generates random input data. So it tests for many different configurations of nodes, and then it checks lots of invariants. So it checks that all transactions are requested, that there are no duplicates, there are no inconsistencies, and so on. So this is actually pretty good tested now. So that's all from me. Any questions?
In performance testing, how much do we see it improving the speed of a catch-up?
It didn't get into the validation phase now, but in the next sprint, our QA will validate actual speed improvements. But theoretically, this could be quite significant because catch-up, because timeout during catch-up for missing catch-up replies are quite big. It's about 6 seconds per transaction, and if we catch up if we need to catch up, for example, 100 transactions, which is quite a usual number of transactions in our load test, the timeout will be 10 minutes.
That makes sense. That's really useful. Thank you for sharing that, Sergey. One of the reasons why this is such a high priority is because if a view change happens during catch-up, things get really complicated. And we found a number of bugs and fixed a number of bugs related to that. So making catch-up more performant will further improve the stability of the system. So thanks for doing that. That's really useful.
Thank you.
Okay, just to finish up then, let's look really briefly. So this release is coming out. Oh, I should ask you, Sergey, so that catch-up improvement is not in the 1.7 release. That'll be in the 1.8 release. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Excellent. And that makes sense. So where we're at then is on the Indy Node side. We're focused now on the pull request, the transaction author agreement. And excuse me, I'm going to mute. Okay, I have my voice back. Our focus for the next couple of weeks, for the entire month pretty much, is implementing the transaction author agreement. You can learn more about that author agreement in Indy 1942. It's an epic. It goes through the design and the requirements and a lot of question answer among the team to decide exactly what needs to be built. And so we look forward to feedback on that. We're going to make good progress on that over the next 2 weeks and then finish it up for an end of May release with Indy Node 1.8. In addition to that, we have some bug fixes and things we need to get cleaned up. On the token side, we're also continuing our work to get the plugin to get the token plugins for the sovereign token to use the new auth rule maps and the multi-signature capabilities that we've implemented on the node side. So that'll allow us to continue our testing with those plugins. And again, we think that's going to take 2 sprints to complete and be done at the end of May. On the SDK side, we're actually not going to do an SDK token work in the next 2 weeks on the SDK. At the end of the sprint, or at the end of the month, in the next sprint, we'll finish up the GIP fees improvements and the auth rule improvements. But instead, the token side, we need to do the transaction author agreement piece so that we have the CLI and API tools necessary to use that. And we're going to continue working on the credential exchange improvements. So you can see the HIPE for that is in the Indy HIPE repository and the credential exchange HIPE that I just lost. There it is, number 89. You can also see we're going to merge into this fairly soon information about payment decorators. Sam Curran has done a draft, but the main one we're using is the one Sergey and Nikita have been working on, and that's actually a pull request in Nikita's repo. This will be moving to the Indy HIPE repo fairly soon. But there's the URL if you want to look at our work on payment decorators. So that's the plan there. The goal is also to leave us some additional space we need to get caught up on pull requests that we haven't done in a month. I mean, we've done some pull requests, but we really need to dig in and make some progress on pull requests and hopefully fix some SDK bugs. So once we get the transaction author agreement stuff under control, the top of the backlog is all about community bugs and pull requests. I should recognize that a good chunk of the team is going to be on vacation for part of the next 2 weeks. It's a set of holidays in Russia, so I wish the team a relaxing time while they do that. And if people are reaching out, it might be a little slower responses because the team's gonna rest up so they can come back fresh. That is the plan. Thank you, team, for all your hard work, and we really appreciate the open source community we collaborate with. The working group calls have been really productive, and we've appreciated the good ideas that people share with us, the improvements they recommend, and the contributions they make to the code base that we can benefit from. So thank you for that. So we'll post again in another update in 2 weeks.